I wanted to talk to you about anxiety and depression and stress and all of that. A lot of people are stressed out nowadays due to the lockdown. What is the primary cause of depression, anxiety, and stress?
It's a really good question, Jesse. And a recent survey showed that about 35% of Americans were experiencing clinically significant depression and anxiety in this past year. And I think some of the key factors for why that has been on the uptick is because the pandemic has really caused people to feel like a loss of control. And all of us human beings, we'd love to feel like we were more in control of our environment, of our life, and we just didn't have that control. We couldn't predict the future. That's very, very hard for us to deal with in a long-term way. Also, people were grieving these past ways of life, how we used to interact with one another. Some people were actually grieving because they lost loved ones due to the pandemic, or they lost their jobs, or they were grieving just the way that they socialized with people. So there was a lot of grief that was also in the mix as well. And when that prolongs for long periods of time and you can't see the end of it, I think that's what caused so many people to become stressed and clinically depressed and anxious.
Is it normal for people to become depressed or stressed and anxiety? Is that normal state of being or abnormal?
You know, it's so hard to say when we talk about definitions of normality now, because when we think about the fact that a third of people were feeling that way, then it feels almost like not abnormal anymore. It wasn't really kind of statistically different. So I think that, part of the stigma that we deal with mental health is that people feel like there's something wrong with them. Whether we want to talk about normality or non-normality, I think, unfortunately, it's just something that we have to deal with. Everybody's lives has been touched by some point with depression or anxiety or stress, whether it's yourself or somebody you care about. And so I just think that we just need to have those conversations in a more open and honest way and help people to get the support that they need.
Is it possible to permanently overcome these things?
Yes, I think that it's really possible to learn coping strategies to manage them. And I think a lot of people, when they come to me in therapy, they say, well, after treatment, does this mean I'll never be depressed again? And for some people, that's true, that their depression doesn't come back. But for a lot of people, it does. But what I tell them is, but now you have the tools. So the next time you notice these symptoms, you don't have to let them get as severe as they did this time. You just apply those techniques, you cope with it, and you move on. So I think that that's really an important message for people to understand. Sometimes people feel like they're a failure if their depression comes back up later in life, and it's not.
What are some of the ways or techniques of overcoming these things?
Well, I am a cognitive behavioral therapist. And what that means is my theory about mental distress is that everything is really triggered by thought processes. And then your thoughts affect your feelings, and then they affect your actions. So sometimes we don't pay attention to our thoughts. We kind of go around, most people have more than 30 or 40,000 thought fragments in a day. Clearly, we're not paying attention to all of them. But some of these thoughts are really damaging. They might be very self-disparaging thoughts, hopeless thoughts. And if you allow your emotions to run with that, then you will become depressed and anxious over time. So it's important to notice your thinking and to really assess your thinking. Thoughts are just mental events. They don't absolutely reflect the truth, even if we feel that way. And so becoming more conscious of your thought process and then applying techniques to really suss out your thoughts, modify your thoughts when they are inaccurate or maybe just way out there, way too hopeless, way too catastrophic. And then really exposing yourself to opportunities for positive emotions. That's a really important piece of this. When people become depressed or anxious, they tend to isolate. So with that isolation, they remove any opportunities they have to feel better, to meet people, to have experiences that could bring their mood up. And so a big part of cognitive behavioral therapy is also teaching people the importance of exposing yourself to positive circumstances and allowing yourself the opportunity to feel happy emotions.
I've noticed that all thoughts are lies. They tend to build you up to have you feeling good. As soon as you're feeling good, they bring you down. Now you're feeling bad. Then they build you up and bring you down, and build you up, and now you want to jump off a bridge. Do you agree that all thoughts are lies? No such thing as a true thought?
Thoughts are just perception. So I agree with your perspective on that. Really, they're not absolute truths. They're your interpretation of what's happening to you in the world. And you're so right about what you just said. Sometimes people build themselves up. They use too much of this idea of positive thinking.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they get disappointed and all of a sudden it goes into the pits. And so we really have to become more realistic with how we manage our thoughts instead of just saying, oh, I'm just going to think positive all the time, thinking that that's all cure. It's really not.
I've noticed that anxiety, depression, and all those types of things are more of a female thing. But lately, males have been getting that. It's kind of abnormal for a man to become depressed. What causing so many males to take on the female identity?
Well, I think with depression and anxiety, historically, we have seen higher rates of depression in females. And some of that is related to also reporting bias because we only know who is suffering when they tell it to us. And so sometimes I think males are not talking about their emotions in the same way and they don't experience depression in the same way. So for example, a lot of my male patients, they don't talk about feeling sad. They talk about lack of energy, lack of sexual drive, no motivation, no interest in things that they used to like to do. And those are symptoms of depression, but they're maybe lesser known symptoms of depression. Whereas females will come and they're more often talking about things like, I have a sad mood, I have a down mood, and talk more about their mood and affective experiences. And I think that there is still such a stigma against men experiencing any kind of mental health symptoms. I think that, as you were mentioning, like maybe some of them may feel that it's demasculating, or maybe sometimes they just feel like, well, if I was stronger, I wouldn't have these experiences. And so I don't think that it's part of the common conversation, even when they are suffering. So male mental health is actually a big area. I think that needs more support. We need to understand it more. And then when people are suffering, how do we get them help if they have a lot of self-stigma about their experiences?
Are you surprised when males come to you for help? Because in a normal state of being, men don't go to women for help like that because of the order of men being over women. Are you surprised so many men are looking to you for help?
You know, I think that there's definitely a couple of different groups of people. And certainly when males come to me for help, I think they're looking kind of for that feminine factor in their life. Perhaps sometimes they haven't felt accepted by other females in their life. But but I also think that sometimes they come to me, you know, but sometimes I think they come to me because they're embarrassed to talk to another man about it. Similar, again, as I mentioned to you about the fact that there is a lot of stigma against mental health problems in men. So they don't want to go talk to another man and admit to them, listen, I'm having these experiences. So then they feel kind of safer going to a female. They might think that they're less judged talking to a female about those problems.